Thank you all for inviting me, for giving me a moment to say a few words. We've been together for the past 2 days to talk about air pollution, climate change, and how it affects our health. It's not terribly surprising that we have noted repeatedly the need to up our game on what we communicate, up our game in terms of how we help people change the behaviors that they would like to change. These are issues of science. There's our science, the behavioral sciences, the social sciences, communication science are perhaps not yet mature sciences, but they are sciences indeed, possibly on the order of maturity of that of climate science. So I begin actually with a humble proposal that perhaps we should have a follow-on meeting in which we look at what the social, behavioral, and communication sciences have to say, have to offer us in terms of more effectively sharing what we know about air pollution, climate change, and human health. I would like to take this chance to, hello. Beautiful. Terrific. So as a communication scientist, I'm going to simplify everything that I have learned in the past 30 years with one simple, clear statement. Every communication campaign in human history has risen or fallen on its ability to comport to this formula. Simple, clear messages, repeated often by a variety of trusted voices. Why must our messages, despite the complexities of the science we've talked about for the past 2 days, why must our messages be simple and clear? Because simple, clear messages command attention, they aid comprehension, and ultimately they encourage people to consider them. Why must we repeat them? It isn't the scientific way to repeat ourselves. We tend to move on to the next most interesting thing. But really, we've known since the era of Athens that repetition is the mother of learning. It is also the mother of liking and the mother of trust. So the more we hear it, the more we come to trust it, the more we come to like the information. And then finally, and most obviously, why do we have to activate a variety of trusted voices? Because where there is no trust, there is no consideration, there is no information sharing. And ultimately, it's when experts take the time to appropriately simplify what they know to generate simple, clear messages that the rest of us begin to share those messages with our members of our social network, with our loved ones, with our friends, with our coworkers. And those are the people who are most trusted in almost everyone's lives. So simple, clear messages repeated often by a variety of trusted voices really is the basis of all effective communication campaigns. I would contend that's what got our current president elected. Bingo. And if we are interested in sharing what we know for the purpose of influencing people's behavior, it helps to point people to a clear destination that inspires them. A clear destination, not an ambiguous statement about runoff in that direction. I would like to thank Senator De Leon and Governor Brown for the incredible work they have done, and this is, I believe, incredibly thoughtful work in terms of pointing all Californians, not just citizens, but your municipal officials, as well as your businesses, pointing them all in the clear destination of a clean energy economy of 50% by December 31st, a specific day in 2025, by 60% by December 31st by 2030, and 100% by December 31st, 2045. That is a clear destination that I believe, and I think you all would agree with me on that, will inspire most Californians and help them change their behavior in a manner to make that collective goal possible. So I actually came today to talk about, to issue a call to action a call to action to the world's health professionals to rally around a clear destination. But before I do that, I have to provide a little bit of backstory. So 3 years ago, my colleagues and I decided to survey the members of different medical societies in America. We started with 3 medical societies where we intuited their members would be most likely to understand the human health consequences of climate change. We surveyed the members of the National Medical Association. Those are America's African American doctors. The members of the American Thoracic Society. Those are Americans' pulmonary doctors. And the members of the Quad AI. I'll just call them the allergists. All 3 of these, based on the science that we've talked about for the past few days, we know they should be seeing the impacts. Those physicians should be seeing the impacts among their patients already. What we learned as a result of surveying them, not only did 70% of survey respondents from all 3 of those medical societies tell us that they were, in fact, already seeing the impacts of climate change on their behavior, on their patients' well-being, but they were engaged, they were ready to engage, both individually and even more importantly, they wanted to see their medical societies engage on their behalf collectively, understanding that this problem requires collective action solutions. So absolutely phenomenal that we surveyed 3 groups of physicians in America. The large majority of them wanted to see their medical societies lean in and take action on this issue. What we did actually is we decided to network them together, to ask these 3 societies and some others to come together as a consortium. The Medical Society Consortium on Climate and Health was going to launch in the days after our national election last November. The results of the election unsettled our members to enough of a degree that they were worried about the status of our healthcare system, and they decided to postpone the launch until March of this year. By the time we got to March of this year, we had 9 medical societies who said, yes, I want to participate in this consortium. This is important to us. We want to be part of it. 6 months into it, we now have 20 medical societies who are part of this consortium. This is very new. We have 20 organizations who want to link arms, who want to work together. Mimi Guarneri's association is one of those 20. They are slowly learning how to become powerful advocates, making sure that not only do our federal officials understand the human health relevance of climate change, but also drilling down into the states where each of them have many members. So with that as the backstory, I'd actually like to now think in a slightly larger manner. Specifically, I'd like to issue a call to action for health professionals worldwide, because as many of you have testified over the past 2 days, the health, safety, and well-being of nearly everyone on this planet, especially the world's poorest, is being threatened by climate change. With each passing year, this threat grows larger. To protect people and the ecosystems on which we depend, we must limit the warming of our planet to no more than 2 degrees. The nations of the world have agreed that this is our goal. The Paris Climate Agreement is our best hope for achieving this goal. To paraphrase the words of both Jeff Sachs yesterday or the day before, as well as my favorite comic actor Bill Murray, we got that going for us, which is nice. But it isn't good enough. The emission reduction commitments made in Paris get us only halfway to that goal. To achieve the goal of Paris, the global community must dramatically reduce its fossil fuels in the very near future, and global carbon emissions must peak by 2020 and fall rapidly to near zero over the next several decades. If success is to be achieved so that we can avert, specifically so that we can avert a sustained public health disaster, we need the nations of the world to double their current level of commitment over the next few years. Building the political will necessary to make this happen will not be easy. We all understand that, but doing so is absolutely imperative. The most important actions that any individual, any civic organization, or any group of concerned citizens can take are those that will help build the political will necessary to persuade our world's leaders to both double our nation's current reduction commitments and to fulfill those commitments as quickly as possible. I didn't have an opportunity to ask Senator De Leon last night to elaborate on the role that health professionals have played in California to build public will, to make possible the political will that he has so effectively mobilized, but I think I know the answer. California's health professionals have been incredibly engaged in this fight, in this effort to help Californians understand what is at stake. Health professionals are uniquely suited to lead the effort to persuade leaders of the world to double our commitments. We are among the most trusted members of every society worldwide. We speak not just with scientific, but also ethical authority. We have, or we can get, the attention of our nation's leaders. We're free of conflicts of interest with regard to defending our climate, and we are also scrupulously evidence-based. And most importantly, we're committed advocates for the very thing that the world's people care about most: their own health, the health of their children, and the health of their grandchildren. The world's health professionals have, or should have, ample motivation to play this role. The health harms of climate change are already significant contributors to many of the leading causes of death and disease, and these impacts are almost certain to get far worse. Moreover, the single most potent driver of climate change, fossil fuel use, also creates air pollution, which is one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality worldwide, entirely distinct from climate change. As was made clear by the Lancet Commission on Health and Climate Change in 2015, responding to climate change could be the greatest global health opportunity of the 21st century. Every nation that doubles its commitment to reducing carbon pollution will reap two important benefits. It will dramatically and rapidly improve the health of its citizens by embracing clean energy, and in doing so, will gain clean air and water in the process. And secondly, it will defend its citizens, as well as all people of the world, by doing its part to avert further dangerous climate disruption. Efforts are already underway in many nations to activate health professionals as advocates for climate and health. These include the Climate and Health Alliance in Australia, the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, the UK Health Alliance on Climate Change, the US Climate and Health Alliance, the Medical Society for Consortium on Climate and Health that I've already mentioned, as well as the EU Health and Environment Alliance. At the global level, the Global Climate and Health Alliance is working to tackle climate change and protect and promote public health, and Healthcare Without Harm is working truly on a global level to transform hospitals and health systems so as to reduce their environmental footprint and become anchors for sustainability and leaders in the global movement for environmental health and justice. Each of these movements, each of these efforts, is important, but they are not yet tightly focused on achieving the global goal of limiting warming to no more than 2 degrees. My colleagues and I therefore propose an initiative to rapidly focus, organize, and empower a movement of health organizations that will seek to convince the leaders of every nation to double down on Paris. By establishing a simple, clear, worldwide objective, an objective that is linked directly to the Paris Agreement and with parallel objectives for every nation, and by identifying an exact date by which these objectives will be met, an exact date to be determined, concerned health professionals in every nation can become compelling advocates for the difficult but necessary pathway to defend health and well-being of the world's people. So, in sum, for many people, or to reiterate a point that Reverend Mitch made, for many people, climate change is a distant threat. They see it they perceive it as distant in time, 2100 perhaps, distant in space, sub-Saharan Africa, wherever, certainly not their country, and distant in species, threatening plants, penguins, and polar bears, but not people. But the fundamental message of the initiative that I propose is that climate change and air pollution are happening now, everywhere, and they're harming us in profound ways. And equally importantly, we have an extraordinary opportunity right now to ensure a better and more healthful present and future for ourselves, our children, and their children. So with that, I will conclude and thank you for your attention.